this February 18th, 2014 meeting of your Newark City Council to order. Thank you for coming. Would you please call the roll for attendance?
Mr. Bubb? Mr. Cost?
Here.
Mrs. Floyd? Here. Mr. Guthrie?
Here.
Ms. Hall? Here. Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Marmee?
Here.
Mr. Rath?
Here.
Mr. Roletta?
Here.
And Mr. Blake?
Present. We have 9 here or present this evening. Mr. Johnson, if you'd please rise. Next on the agenda is Mr. Johnson for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Johnson.
Let us pray. We gather in your presence and we ask your blessing on our meeting. Guide us in our deliberations, bless us in our decisions, and may we ever serve our community with your guidance. We're thankful for the opportunity to gather in this land of liberty and individual freedom. We pray for the oppressed and those in need. Please minister to them. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda this evening, we have caucus. That's some time for council to discuss anything on the agenda this evening. Do we have anything, Mr. Marmee?
Yes, I'd like to excuse Mr. Bubb.
Motion by Mr. Marmee, second by Mrs. Floyd. All those in favor of excusing Mr. Bubb signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Mr. Bubb will be excused. Anything else for caucus? Next, we have the minutes of our February 3rd, 2014 meeting that you've all looked at. Is there a motion to accept those? Motion by Mr. Rath. Second by Mr. Johnson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. We have 3 reports of standing committees this evening. One from Finance, one from Service, and one from Personnel. Without objection, those will be received and filed. We also have a report from our city auditor, Stephen Johnson, the operating report for the period ending January 31st, 2014. Also, without objection, that will be received and filed. Next, we have communications this evening. We have 2 communications. One from Nancy Whaley, the differences between property maintenance code and the rooming house ordinance with regards to rooming houses, and also from Tim Argyle, a complaint regarding the condition of the local roads from the recent snowstorm. Those also will be received and filed. Next on the agenda this evening, we have comments from citizens. There's 2 places for citizens' comments on our agenda. One is now before the legislation, and then the next one is after the legislation. All we ask is if you raise your hand and come up and give us your name and address for the record. Also, be respectful, and I will make sure that you are respected. Do we have anyone for citizens' comments this evening? Mr. Booker.
Reverend Fred Booker, 1140 Clare Street, Pataskala, Ohio. I am the Executive Director of Shiloh Holistic Opportunity Programs, and I represent the Matthews House as well. I have some information package for council members in regard to 343 Eastern Avenue, which will be discussed tonight. Just want to provide some additional information before we vote. And certainly we understand the gravity and the responsibility that you feel in your positions as city council members, and so we really know that new information brings new decisions, and every information that we can perhaps bring to you to clarify any misinformation that may have been out, or just information that perhaps you might need to make up your mind tonight. We would like to try to provide that. We are pleased to be supported tonight by several members from our community. We have individuals who are housed in the Matthews House with us tonight. We have judges, we have pastors, we have any number of individuals from the community who really and truly understand what the Matthews House has meant to the east side of Newark. There's several issues that have been raised. Among those has been, will the residents of the Matthews House be good neighbors? And our response to that is very simply yes. We engage in so many positive activities within the community. As we have stated in previous meetings, we sponsor dinners for the seniors throughout the neighborhood for Christmas and Thanksgiving on a monthly basis throughout the summer. We have cookouts and we deliver meals to our seniors. We help them move furniture. We shovel snow. We do just whatever it is that might be needed within the community. We try to do it as part of our community service effort, which is one of the things that's required of every person that comes to the Matthews House. And so service is really the underpinning of what we do, and it really keeps our guys going. We also are good neighbors in the community, as is attested to by, and you see it in your packet, CVS Pharmacy. Marsha Cow, the store manager, has provided us with her signature, and it states, "Do you feel the Matthews House is beneficial for the community?" And she says yes. "Do you support the Second Chance Network?" And she says yes to that as well. Brother Stan Ford, who owns 6 properties in that particular area, we asked him the same question. Incidentally, Mr. Ford is here tonight, and we expect that he will have a statement for you as well. But Mr. Ford actually provides maintenance for the Matthews House pro bono. And so the question of whether or not property values are affected by the house being in the neighborhood, the answer to that, based on Mr. Ford, who is a prominent property owner in the city of Newark, Lincoln County, is that he thinks that it's advantageous to the community to have the house in our neighborhood. So there are just a number of things that we can present, a number of people who will testify to the fact that the Matthews House has been a positive influence in the neighborhood, and the young men that are there, they are just there to try to get their lives together. They're there to try to do better. And without a structured environment like that we provide, who can tell me where they might be? So with that, I'd just like to open up the floor to those that have come tonight. If you would please come forward and provide your own testimony.
Thank you, Reverend Booker.
Shane Wright, 343 Eastern Avenue. I'd like to thank you all for being here. I would like to say something as a resident of the house. We do a lot for the community. I mean, we're not asked to do anything for the community. But the way I'm looking at it, is we need a place like the Matthews House so we can try and better ourselves and plus help the community at the same time. Because I know 2 years ago, I wasn't the best person. I'm still not the best person, but I'm making strides to change that, and every day. And whether it's just going out, shoveling snow, giving somebody a meal, talking to the seniors, I'm doing all of this stuff of my free will. Since being at the Matthews House, I've been baptized, I've been saved. Life is getting a whole lot better. It's still a rocky road, but that's because of the choices that I've made in life that I'm trying to fix. Basically, I think that the zoning should pass, just for the simple fact we're all trying to do something better to ourselves. And like the Reverend said, if we weren't to be, if we didn't have a place like the Matthews House, who's to say where we'd be? I know where I would probably be. I'd probably be in jail or in prison, taking up taxpayers' money. And I don't want to do that. I would much rather give back to the community. I'd much rather be somebody supported. I'd like to be one of the people that you guys walk by and be like, "Hey Shane, how you doing?" and shake my hand. Because that's the type of place that we're trying to make the Matthews House. I think that we're all very good neighbors. We do whatever we can to help out whoever. Sometimes they can ask, sometimes we'll just do it voluntarily. Like if we help with the produce over at the seniors building, just countless things that we do for the community. And I think it would be a shame if we did not pass the zoning, so that way we can try and help more people like myself. With that, I thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Sure. Judge Marceline.
Members of council, thank you for the opportunity to come speak to you a little bit. I knew the Matthews House was going to be on your agenda tonight, so I felt obligated to come and answer some questions or speak out a little bit on their behalf. I know some of the people who live there are there after being placed there under the direct supervision of the court. I can't tell you how they are once they're there, but I know that there's a lot of thought and background that goes into deciding who's going to be able to go there. We also contribute to their supervision while they're there. If they didn't behave, they wouldn't be there anymore. It's certainly a facility that we need, and I'm confident that it's well run and can be very successful in the community. And it's one that we anticipate working with in the future a great deal. There's not as many state dollars as there used to be for these types of places or placements, and even for community resources, there's a lot less of those than there used to be 5 years ago. So it's a necessary thing, I think. It's something that they want to do. It's something that they're striving to do, and seem to me have planned well so far and have been easy to work with. And again, it's something that the court has some input in with also. So it's not just they're not there on their own or flying out there by themselves. They have some other help and input. Should they have that many people, they need to toe the line and do the right thing and continue doing the things you heard them talk about if they want to be able to stay there. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Could you give us your name and address for the record?
Thomas Porcelain at 792 West Church.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for this first section of citizens' comments?
My name's Stanley Ford, 11 Brentwood Drive, northeast of Newark, Ohio. And Reverend Booker had mentioned that I have 6 properties down in that area. Actually, I have 7. I don't own them. The bank owns them. I control them. The manager, they put me in charge of managing them. Anyway, the contact that I've had with the Matthews House, like Reverend Booker mentioned, I've done some work within my ability inside of the Matthews House itself. And I've also used some of the residents there to do some work in some of my units around the area. Use them in the area of cleaning out units and actually making some repairs. And they did a very, very good job at that. Also, I have a house right next door to the Matthews House at 349 Eastern Avenue. And I just went by there the other day. I was going up the alley, and there was a couple of them out in the backyard of the neighboring property, helping to put a storage building together because of some of the vandalism that's been taking place in the area, property being stolen. And they're helping put this unit together, helping people do that. They've also helped trim the shrubs at this same property, help with cleanup in the area. And I've been inside of their house, and they keep it very clean inside. Haven't seen any problem with any debris or anything of that nature. And they seem to follow the rules. Now, the judge had mentioned that if they don't follow the rules, they're no longer there. Well, some of the names that I was familiar with, because I was keeping them on a list and keeping a list of their abilities so that I could plug them into some work assignments later. Well, some of those people started disappearing off the list, and I found out that they weren't abiding by the rules, and they did pull them out of there. So I think it'd be actually a positive asset to the community.
Anyone else this evening?
I'm the Grouse from Eastern Avenue. My name is Ron Walpole, and I live 340 Eastern Avenue, apartment 321. I'm across the street from the Matthew House. I'll tell you what, the seniors love them to death. I've seen them. Our Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner was done by the Matthew House. They come in and done it. They've helped with the snow. I've seen a couple of guys come over and shovel snow from front of our building. Even though we got contractors to do it, they come over and get it before anybody else when they see people need it done. My mother was moved by 2 of the guys from the halfway house. They went over there and told them they need a couple of guys with help to help them move, and guess what? Them guys worked like dogs for about 4 hours, moving pianos and everything. And they didn't want to take nothing but my mother. She's Canadian. She told them, you're either going to take it or else. You know, that's the way it lays. But I can look back at myself when I looked at Matthew's house. 30 years ago, I had 27 DUIs in Florida State. Guess what? Today, knock on wood, that stuff's poison to me today. And you know, I talked to a few of the guys from over there. A couple of them want to visit me, and I go and visit them too. So what? You got alcoholics in there. You got drug heads in there. They went through, they got clean. Now they want to stay clean. And you know what? Without the help of that house being there to give them a chance to get on the right track and to do things for others, where are they going to be? A druggie ain't no different than an alkie. It's all the same thing. And I'll tell you what, that Matthew house is a benefit to Eastern Avenue. Somebody wants out, you see something, and guess what? You don't hear them guys tell you no. They was over at our building last week with food, helping us handing out food. Do you know who said they had to take a cart and go up on floors and knock on doors? What other person would ever think of doing something like that? You know, these guys do it on their own. And I'll tell you what, you want to build East End up, right there is the best way to do it. Bring people in that want to get their lives together. I've lived on that in town all my life, just about. And I'll tell you what, it's better now than it was 20, 30 years ago. And it's because of people like them, we're letting them come in. And we're giving them a hand. And you know what, they're feeding us too at the same time. And we don't have to ask for their help. They offer it to you real quick. And I think that house should stay right where it's at. I remember playing in the backyard of that house when I was a kid. So I'll tell you how many years I've been around there.
Thank you. Would also like to add anything new or different?
Yes, I am.
Yes, sir.
Michael Noble, 590 Kimberly Court, Peak, Ohio. You also have in your package, which was not mentioned, a petition where we collected at least over 100 signatures to signify that we're not just espousing or verbally the community, supporting the community, but that people have signed on the dotted line. One thing I would like to also just throw out that it appears to me, and I haven't heard it discussed, is that what really lies before you is the possibilities for us to service as many as possible within the law, of course, because the need is not the issue. You have to do case assessments and you have to do studies about, is there a need in the community for these kinds of services? We haven't touched the tip of the iceberg with the existing institutions and ourselves. So it seems to me that I'd like to just put it before you in that context. We'd like to help as many as we can. And the rezoning of that will at least allow us to try and make a dent. To limit that would be do a disservice. And if in fact, we have to take the second chance away from an individual that is trying to be a productive citizen in society, then that would truly be a travesty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'll be brief, as we've had many speakers, and they've certainly let you all know the mission of the Matthew House. I've probably been in the Matthew House longer than anybody here. The Matthew House was named.
Name and address first.
Yes, I'm sorry. My name is Clinton Elmore. My address is 645 Fairway Boulevard in Whitehall, Ohio.
Thank you.
I reside in Whitehall, Ohio, but my home is Newark, Ohio. My grandparents migrated here from the South to escape Jim Crow to get a second chance at their life. They raised 9 children here in Newark, including my father and my Aunt Frances, who lived at 343 Eastern Avenue. And I have many fond memories of being here in Newark, Ohio, and being in that house. And what I think about most of all, and what people have expressed here, is the love that came out of the house, the love and the support of the community. And I want to thank all of you who have continued that legacy in that home of providing support to people in the community, to opening your hearts to people in the community, to being here to support this mission. I thank all of you for your time, and I thank you for your consideration. And Aunt Frances, For those of you who may have known her, because she worked here down here for the city for a while, she was very firm but fair, and so was this program. And she was also full of grace. And that's what I'm asking you all for in this rezoning request, is grace in the request. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. William, you want to say something? Now's your chance. Okay, William, you'll be next.
Hi, I'm Romy Bennett. I live at 5888 Hudson Avenue. I'm one of the returning citizens. I'm in the Second Chance Network down at Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. And I support the Matthews House. I know since the Matthews House has come to Newark, east side of Newark, I've been part of the produce, helping with the food pantry, and I love all the guys in there. They're wonderful. Richard, every time he needs me or needs anyone to support him or help him, to help out with the seniors and with the different dinners and the different functions, we're right there to help him. And I'm a returning citizen myself. I just come home about a year and a half ago, and since I've been out, I've joined the Second Chance Network, which is a part of the Matthews House. We have our prayer groups, and the guys are amazing. If you need them to do anything, they will do anything for you. It's just, I think it's wonderful because I've been in treatment programs myself, and just like if you don't do right while you're in the program, they're gonna make you leave. If you want to work your program and stay clean and sober, I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict myself, and being around the Matthews House with our groups and being around Richard and the Shiloh family, it has made me to grow and be the woman that I know I could be today, to help give back to the community, because I love the job that I have today. I work with people, and I love being around people. I love supporting the elderly especially, and it's just being around the fellas and the program and just giving back to the community makes me feel good about myself. And I just got to be here today. I've never been to a meeting like this. I just wanted to share a little bit about what I've been through in my life. And I love the Matthews House. The guys are wonderful. I'm here to support the Matthews House and the Second Chance Network, because it all combines. We're all like a family there. And with that, thank you. Let me speak.
Okay. My name is William Butcher, 129 West Main Street, and I was just got from work with Sparks here recently, and my co-workers works with Miss Sparks. She had a little complaint about her street. Her street was never plowed. And there's Indian Avenue or Indian Street. She had to see a snowplow down to there. And I've been down that street, and it was snow covered and everything else. And she doesn't know what she's going to be doing about that. My job is that forecast. Should be money cleared, mostly cloudy night, low 50, but tomorrow high and upper 60s. We could see some chance of showers or thunderstorms by Wednesday, by Thursday. So rain or sea or freezing rain. Should be turning rain by middle of next week. I get 7 days. That was in one forecast. If you want to catch my forecast, you catch my forecast on go to Sparks Facebook page. You'll find me right there.
Thank you. I think you answered your own question with that Thursday forecast of 60 degrees. Anyone else? Okay. Go ahead. So close.
My name is Richard Cook. My address is 343 Eastern Avenue. I am a director on Second Chance Network and director of the Matthews House. I'm honored, you know what I mean, just to be amongst the people. The fellowship is very important. But one thing I just wanted to really drop out there and let you guys know. Since I've been here, dealing with a lot of disenfranchised, I realized a lot of shelters, just not in Licking County, but all across Ohio, won't accept a man or woman once they're coming home from prison. And a lot of times that application on an apartment also has something stated as you've been convicted or not. So it's kind of hard once a guy get paroled or coming through the court systems to honestly find somewhere to live unless you got a mom and daddy that's going to open their doors. It's basically guys are being homeless and women are being homeless. There's some things that we may need to look at in their future. But I know the zoning process is to see if we ready to expand or not, but it's very important. I guess just from a moral aspect, that we have a lot of people here homeless, you know, we don't have enough space now, you know, I mean, it's a need all over Ohio. We lead 1.7 million people or something on the record, so just imagine if they don't have a support system, they basically come home homeless in this situation, so I'm ready for the verdict. Win, lose, draw. God bless you. Thank you.
Craig Norman, 189 West Locust Street, Newark. Alex, I know I said I wasn't going to speak, but I got to. I stand before you. 15 years ago, I came out of prison. And had I not had a family member to support me, I would have been probably up robbing one of y'all's houses. It's a serious matter when we pray to God and we say, help the oppressed. That's how we started this out tonight. These gentlemen at the house are oppressed. They were oppressed by their own demons. They did their time. If we oppress them when they come out, we can make them re-victimize other people. The courts will blame them, but it'll fall on our heads. So I suggest that we just rezone this and allow for this program to work. These gentlemen are coming out, helping our community. They're doing it, and I'm proud of every one of them. I don't know them. I came by and I seen the sign, I'm like, what is going on at City Hall? I'm out here, you know, I'm a universal life minister. Tell I'm not dressed in a suit like Trevor Noble because we deal with the undesirables. I've taken food when we had the Dreco storm. My wife and I prepared sandwiches and took it to the south end, at the north end for a while. I don't ask for city fundings. I don't ask for any of that. And these gentlemen, they're out here doing the same thing their own way. I can remember Reverend Noble and the Shiloh Baptist Church as far back as I can remember being alive here. This is a church-run organization, and I also urge you to understand that the First Amendment is precedent when it comes to this as well. These gentlemen did their time to take this away from them and place them somewhere else, to place them in jeopardy, us as people in jeopardy, can only serve to violate the First Amendment and the second chance that every American should have. Thank you.
Thank you. That it for this evening. For the first section, there is another section. Okay, let's move on to ordinances on the second reading. Ordinance 13-44. It has already been read a second time. There's been a motion by Rath, a second by Bub to adopt. It was tabled by Ms. Hall for 2 weeks, which is this evening. So that's where we are at this point on them. I'm just going to have you go ahead and read 13-44, and then we'll open it up for discussion.
Ordinance 13-44, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property generally described as 343 Eastern Avenue, City of Newark, Licking County, Ohio, from that of Single-Family Residence District to MFR Multifamily Residence District.
The Planning Commission has approved this, so it takes 6 votes to adopt this. If the Planning Commission would have said no, it would take 7 votes, but that's not the case, so it takes 6 votes to adopt this, correct? Okay. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Cost?
I'd like to make something very clear. I support the work and the mission of the Matthews House. I have no questions concerning your intentions. I have no doubt or hesitation about the work you're doing in the community. My hope is to have this house keep functioning, but within the structure of a single-family residence area, which is where it is. It's where it's located. My concern is strictly zoning, nothing else. I think the work you're doing is remarkable, and I hope it continues. I wish you all the best on your program. I just want to make sure that you're going to continue to be a good neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cost. Mr. Marmee?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to echo a little bit of what Mr. Cost has indicated, that as far as what's before us this evening is a zoning issue, and whether or not the zoning classification that's being requested fits within that specific area, and that's what we need to look at as far as this legal entity. And specific use is not something that we can necessarily vote for or against. I support all of what you all have said this evening as far as what you're trying to do and what you're attempting to do. I also know that even if this zoning goes through, that does not mean that you're going to meet all the guidelines. It's just the first step. There's still property maintenance issues. There's still other legal issues with our ordinances within the city that must be met in order to operate in the fashion and the functions that you're attempting to do. Our only objective up here right now before us is, does that zoning meet that specific area? And as a property owner, does it meet your property owner rights and also the property owner rights of those around you? So that's what we'll be voting on this evening, and that's where I'll be voting from this evening, is whether or not it meets that specific requirement in the area on Washington Street.
Eastern. Thank you, Mr. Eastern. Sorry, Mr. Marmee. Mrs. Floyd?
As everybody else has said, this is strictly a zoning issue. Many times, and zoning issues, as we've talked before, are one of the toughest issues sometimes, because a lot of times neighbors complain and some people want a change and some don't. The one thing I've noticed with this property is this is the third meeting we've been to where there's been discussion on this property, and there has not been one negative thought where somebody says, don't do it. And a lot of times we did one on 21st Street not too long ago. That was single family in the area and multi-family. A business wanted to go there, and we had neighbors come and say, don't do it. And it was done anyhow. To me, it seems that yes, there are single-family dwellings right there. I grew up in that area, so I know it. There is also a huge apartment complex across the street, So I don't see this as an issue, and I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Floyd. Mr. Guthrie?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. I just, of course, I think this is a challenging issue for all of us. I made the decision that I am going to vote for it. I guess I'm bad when I say this, but the fact is that I'm voting for it because of what's going on there. And, I talked to a resident of the high-rise who feels very good about what is transpiring in the mission over there at the Matthews House. I suppose you ought to take away my birthday for making a decision based on the use, but because for me, this is contrary to what I believe. I believe that spot zonings we should avoid as often as we possibly can. So I guess I'm a bit of a hypocrite, but to be honest with you, I'm placing my faith. I've heard Pastor Noble's dad many occasions talk about faith, in my visits to Shiloh, I'm just going to put my faith in you folks that this mission is going to continue in the manner it is now, and put faith in Mr. Cook and in the residents, that you are going to continue to be good neighbors, and I'm going to hope that my affirmative vote is the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. Anyone? Mr. Blake?
Mr. President, I'm most definitely in favor of this, and it touches me, and I understand the question of strictly zoning, but when you have the support of such a cause as this particular situation does, I agree that it has to be supported. I mean, I've attended this rally that you shared. My aunt's name was on this dinner, so I know of the good works that you folks have done. And she didn't say it, but that's my Aunt Romy Blake, who's testified before us tonight. And but this is just really a small testimony of all the issues that really exist in our city. This room could be filled with second chance networks of citizens. And I believe in developing right relationships, and I believe in developing not only right relationships with each of us, but also with our own God, whoever that may be. And it's important that the services and the opportunities that are being given at the Matthews House continue. And I'm just hoping that the men and the women and everyone who's involved in the program develop right relationship. And so I just want to make sure that everyone knows I will be supporting the zoning change tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Anyone else? Mr. Johnson?
I'm looking at the zoning map, and all around there is multi-zoning, except for one lot between the property that is being considered, and across the street is multifamily. So I think the cause is wonderful, and so I'm going to vote for it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else? Mr. Adams?
Yeah, I'll just add real quickly. You're right, there is one piece of property in between this property and the apartment complex that's at 349, and the owner is here tonight and spoke in favor of this zoning change.
Thank you.
Make a note of that.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Anyone else? Autumn, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Bub? Mr. Cost?
No.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rapp?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
And Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance... We're way over the line tonight, aren't we? Ordinance 13-44 has passed. Next one. If you guys, I'll give you a minute, because unless you'd like to sit through the rest of the meeting, I'll give you a minute if you'd like to go.
Rest of the meeting is 3 minutes. God bless you guys. God bless. Say the rest of the meeting is 3
Excuse me, council. I would like to thank you all for passing that zoning. You guys are all welcome to stop by the house anytime you'd like to.
All right, next we have resolutions on the second reading. Next we have resolutions on the second reading. Hey, go ahead, take it outside, William. 14-06.
Resolution number 1406 by Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rapp, Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to submit an application to the the Ohio Department of Public Safety for an award of fiscal year 2014-2015 funding under the Ohio EMS Training and Equipment Grant Program.
You've heard the second reading of 14-06. What is your wish, Mr. Blake?
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt.
Motion by Mr. Blake, second by Mr. Cost. Any discussion on 14-06? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Bub? Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
And Mr. Blake?
Yes.
14-06 has passed. Next, we have 14-08.
Resolution 14-08 by Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, and Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating and disappropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
You've heard the second reading of 14-08. What is your wish, Mr. Blake?
Mr. President, make a motion to adopt 1408.
Motion by Mr. Blake, second by Mrs. Floyd. Is there any discussion on 14-08? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Bub? Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
And Mr. Blake?
Yes.
14-08 has passed. Next, resolutions on the first reading, 14-09.
Resolution 14-09 by Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, and Mr. Rath, a resolution authorizing and directing the fire chief of the city of Newark to submit an application to the Licking Memorial Health Foundation for a 12-lead EKG grant.
Mr. President.
Mr. Blake.
Make a motion to waive the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Blake, second by Mr. Rath, to waive the two-day reading rule. Autumn, please call the roll. Or Mr. Blake, why is that?
There's a March deadline that's coming. We want to get this through tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Blake.
Mr. Bub? Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
And Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Two-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Blake.
Make a motion to adopt 1409, please.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Blake, second by Mrs. Floyd. Any discussion on 14-09? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Bub? Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
And Mr. Blake?
Yes.
14-09 has passed. Next on the first reading, we have 14-10.
Resolution 14-10 by Mr. Cost, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, and Mr. Marmee, a resolution approving the renewal application for placement of farmland in the agricultural district and declaring an emergency.
14-10 is an emergency. What is your wish? Mr. Cost.
Make a motion to adopt 1410.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cost, second by Mr. Rath. Any discussion on 14-10? Autumn, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Bub? Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
And Mr. Blake?
Yes.
14-10 has passed. Next, we have 14-11.
Resolution 14-11 by Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, and Mrs. Floyd. A final ODOT resolution for upgrading signals at State Route 16 and Dayton Road and West Main Street and 30th Street lying within the city of Newark.
14-11 will be held.
Mr. President.
Mr. Marmee.
Make a motion to waive the two-day reading rule of 14-11.
Motion by Mr. Marmee to waive the two-day reading rule.
Second.
Second by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Marmee.
Yeah, our city engineer has indicated that this needs to be expedited in order to meet some deadlines to get started on this right away.
Thank you, Mr. Marmee. Autumn, please call the roll to waive the two-day reading rule.
Mr. Bub? Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
And Mr. Blake?
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived.
I make a motion to adopt 14-11.
Motion by Mr. Marmy, second by Mr. Rath. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll please call the roll vote.
Mr. Bub? Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
And Mr. Blake?
Yes. 14-11 has passed. And finally, this evening, we have 14-13.
Resolution 14-13 by Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmy, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
14-13 will be held for a second reading. And that concludes the legislation this evening. Thank you. Next, we have another section for citizens' comments. Do we have anyone for the second section? Mrs. Kennedy, I'm glad I see you're here with all your friends. How are you?
I'm Webb Butcher, 129 West Main Street. I just get a question before you, maybe you got my answer. What's going to be happening at the old school right across the street? Because somebody's been telling me somebody's going to be turned to apartment, somebody told me they were turned to office. So I'd like to know what the situation is. And I got one final contact, some neighbors went down to pick up a couple of friends of mine, and then I know when the pothole was going to get patched again. I'd like the city council is front about that patch.
Thank you, William. Anyone else? Ma'am?
My name is Melita Scanlon, 182 North Gay Street, North Ohio. I'm the manager of Washington Square Plaza. My biggest concern is with the city plowing. Eastern Avenue has not been touched at all. My biggest concern is not only my seniors leaving out of the building. This morning, I watched several cars that was not even able to go up the small incline. It's seeing the paramedics come inside the building and everything, they have to jump out of their trucks. They would have busted their heads this morning. I mean, and I called several places. I called the city streets today. No one has returned any of my phone calls to ask. I just kept getting, Newark is out of salt. We don't know when it's coming in. I just want to know, can someone return my phone call just to say, so that I can let my seniors know they're working on it? Because I know several of my seniors came down this morning, like, when are they going to get to us? And that's the biggest part, and that's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. If you could just hang around a minute after the meeting. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next, we have anyone from the administration? The Honorable Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Sasson. Mayor Hall.
I will pass also.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. Who's first? Mr. Cost? Mr. Cost.
I'd like to reiterate one more time, I wish the folks on Eastern Avenue all the success. I hope their program goes incredibly well, and we'll hope for the best. I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Cost. Mrs. Floyd?
Just want to make people aware, I know there have been some notices, and I don't have the exact time. The health department is having a dead bug summit at the library. I think it's on February 27th. I think we probably all got emails about it, but considering that comes up here several times, it might be something that some of us or some of the audience might want to attend. And finally, good luck to all the area basketball teams as they get into tournament.
Thank you, Mrs. Floyd. Mr. Guthrie?
Yes. Ms. Cost, excuse me. Ms. Floyd mentioned the area basketball teams. Friday night might be one of the biggest nights on the Newark High School campus in a heck of a long time, because I think that there is a mental health event there in the Commons. There is a tournament game there, And the 20th Century Flyer is there. So I don't know who's providing shuttle service, but they could probably make some money if they did, because I cannot imagine there's going to be a parking place within a block or two of Newark High School. A couple things that I wanted to mention. First, I hope that the rest of you noticed the really great spread of photography in the Advocate regarding Haiti. The Advocate photographer, I believe her name is Jessica Phelps, went with Dr. Tracy and Dr. Janine Flood to Haiti, and Dr. Tracy has a clinic there, and I've been to Haiti before, and what they're doing there are great things. And the photography, I looked at every picture on the website, and it was just fantastic. I think there's actually some award-winning photography there, and you can see the plight of the people that poorest country in the Western Hemisphere on the faces of many of the folks in those photographs. So I'm very grateful that the Advocate carried them, and that they committed resources for this photographer to go to Haiti. I certainly assume they did. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is a number, and I want to thank especially Lori Resta and Steve Johnson for assisting me. Bill Spurgeon also emailed me today. I think that it's important that council, that we know, some numbers, and that we have in the 2014 budget, there are 78 firefighters budgeted during this year. We currently have 76. As we heard last week during the special meeting, that we may have some retirements. So I'm certainly hoping that we can at least fill a couple firefighters during 2014, a couple slots, especially since we budgeted for them. And even with the new contract, there's really no reason that we shouldn't be able to get back to 76 firefighters, even with 2 retirements. So with that, that's all I have this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. Ms. Hall? Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Johnson?
No, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to wish the best of fortune to the basketball programs. We've had some fantastic opportunities, I believe, this year in the city of Newark, between Newark High and Newark Catholic programs, and I wish all of them good fortune. Mentioning of potholes, it always brings back a memory of Reverend Rao. There were a number of folks that always wanted speed bumps in our neighborhoods, and he just said that potholes are nothing cheaper than speed bumps, so it'll slow traffic down. So you always look at the positive aspect of potholes. And then finally, I have 2 numbers, 50 and 30. 50. We've had over 50 inches of snow in this year, and the year goes from, it's weird, but it goes from July to July as far as snowfall and how they measure it. But we have had over 50 inches of snow. 30 days until spring.
Thank you, Mr. Marmon. Mr. Rath?
I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Mr. Ralev?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one thing I'd like to note. Within a month, I plan on organizing a meeting, inviting individuals that served on our property maintenance committee, just to get this group together one more time to discuss some areas of consensus and talk about some possible ways we can make some common sense improvements to the ordinances we currently have. That and pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ralev. Mr. Blake?
Mr. President, I just want to give a few thank yous. I want to thank Director Spurgeon for helping me with a few constituent issues over the last few weeks. I want to thank Mr. Loomis, who's sitting back there. He took the newbies on a tour of the water facilities. So we went to the stormwater and his office down here on 5th Street and then up on the north end of town. So I appreciate his time to give us a tour of that facility. I don't think that people really realize the extent of what our water department does and the facilities that we have to provide good clean water, but I do want to thank him for that opportunity to go on that tour. So, and then Mr. Rhodes isn't here, but Mr. Mayor, Mr. Rhodes also helped me with a few constituent issues, so please pass on my thanks to him. And I do want to thank Lori Rusted as well. I spent an hour with her going over some budget things, and so I appreciate her time. So thank you very much. With that, I'll pass. Oh, I'm sorry. Call Finance Committee meeting for next week. So pass.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Service.
Call service meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next committee meetings will be Monday, February 24th at 5:30 here in this chamber. Our next council meeting is Monday, March the 3rd at 7 p.m. also here in this chamber. I'll be here. Once again, thank you, William. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. It's good to see you. We appreciate your input. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Koff, second by Mr. Rath. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign.